The greatest writer of the Renaissance was William Shakespeare. Shakespeare never made much money and is famous only because of his plays. He lived in Windsor with his merry wives, writing tragedies, comedies, and errors. In one of Shakespeare's famous plays, Hamlet rations out his situation by relieving himself in a long soliloquy. In another, Lady Macbeth tries to convince Macbeth to kill the king by attacking his manhood. Now, Romeo and Juliet are an example of a heroic couplet. Writing at the same time of Shakespeare was Miguel Cervantes. He wrote Don Quixote. The next great author was John Milton. Milton wrote Paradise Lost. Then his wife died, and he wrote Paradise Regained. During the Renaissance, America began. Christopher Columbus was a great navigator who discovered America while cursing about the Atlantic. His ships were the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Fe. What happened to Atchison? Later, the Pilgrims crossed the ocean, and this was called the Pilgrim's Progress. When they landed at Plymouth Rock, they were greeted by the Indians, who came down the hill, rolling their war hoops before them. The Indian squabs carried porpoises on their back. Many of the Indian heroes were killed, along with their cabooses, which proved very fatal to them. The winter of 1620 was a hard one for the settlers. Many people died, and many babies were born. Captain John Smith was responsible for all of this. One of the causes of the Revolutionary Wars was the English put tax in their tea. During the... other line. Also, the colonists would send their parcels, what should be parcels, through the post without stamps. During the war, red coats and Paul Revere was throwing balls over stone walls. The dogs were barking and the peacocks crowing. Finally, the colonists won the war and no longer had to pay for taxis. Delegates from the original 13 states formed the Contented Congress. Thomas Jefferson, a virgin, and Benjamin Franklin were two singers of the Declaration of Independence. Franklin had gone to Boston, carrying all his clothes... Franklin had gone to Boston, carrying all his clothes in his pocket and a loaf of bread under each arm. He invented electricity by rubbing cats backwards and declared, "A horse divided against itself cannot fall." Frag. Try again. He invented electricity by rubbing cats backwards and declared, "A horse divided against itself cannot stand." Franklin died in 1790 and is still dead. George Washington married Martha Curtis, and in due time became... In due time became the father of our country. Then, the Constitution of the United States was adopted to secure domestic hostility. Under the Constitution, the people enjoyed the right to bear arms. Abraham Lincoln became America's greatest president. Lincoln's mother died in... I'm fine. Lincoln's mother died in infancy, and he was born in a log cabin which he built with his own hands. When Lincoln was president, he wore only a tall silk hat. He said, "In onion, there is strength." Abraham wrote the Gettysburg Address while traveling from Washington to Gettysburg on the back of an envelope. He also signed the Emasculation Proclamation. He also signed the Emasculation Proclamation, and the 14th Amendment gave I can't handle this. He also signed the Emasculation Proclamation, and the 14th Amendment gave the ex-Negroes citizenship. Like Michael Jackson, okay. But the Ku Klux Klan would torture and lynch the ex-Negroes and other innocent victims. On the night of April 14th, 1865, Lincoln went to the theater and got shot and got shot in his seat by one of the actors in a moving picture. Holy God. Lincoln went to the theater and got shot in his seat by one of the actors in a moving picture show. The believed assassinator was John Wilkes Booth, a supposedly insane actor. This ruined Booth's career. Things are tough everywhere. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Enlightenment was a reasonable time. Voltaire invented electricity and also wrote a book called Candy. Gravity was invented by Isaac Walton. Wow. Back to nature. It is chiefly noticeable in the autumn when apples are falling off the trees. Bach was the most famous composer in the world, and so was Handel. Handel was half German, half Italian, and half English. He was very large. It says that there. Bach died from 1750 to the present. Son of a basket case. Bach died from 1750 to the present. Beethoven wrote music even though he was deaf. He was so deaf he wrote loud music. He took long walks in the forest even when everyone was calling for him. Beethoven expired in 1827 and later died for this. Sad. France was in a very serious state. The French Revolution was accomplished before it happened. The Marseillaise was the theme song of the French Revolution, and it catapulted into Napoleon. During the Napoleonic Wars, the crowned heads of Europe were trembling in their shoes. And the Spanish guerrillas came down from the hills and nipped at Napoleon's flanks. Napoleon became ill with bladder problems and was very tense and unrestrained. He wanted an heir to inherit his power, but since Josephine was a baroness, she couldn't bear him any children. Didn't know that. The sun never set on the British Empire because the British Empire is in the east and the sun sets in the west. Queen Victoria was the longest queen. She sat on a thorn for 63 years. Her key reclining years, and finally the end of her life, were exemplary of a great personality. Her death was the final event which ended her reign. Now, the 19th century was a time of many great inventions and thoughts. The invention of the steamboat caused a network... Well, that was neat. Suddenly the water just started flowing by itself. In the sink! Try again. The invention of the steamboat caused a The invention of the steamboat caused a network of rivers to spring up. Oh. Cyrus McCormick invented the McCormick Raper, which did the work of 100 men. Samuel Morse invented a code for telepathy. Louis Pasteur discovered a cure for rabies. Charles Darwin was a naturalist who wrote The Organ of the Species. Madman Curie discovered radium, and Karl Marx became one of the Marx brothers. The First World War, caused by the assassination of an archduke by a serf, ushered in a new era in the annals of world history. And that was the end of history. Thank you very much for existing. Goodbye.